I'm Jacob,
I'm Michael.
and we're here to review Badfinger's Warner Brothers singles from late 73, early 1974. This is a little bit complex, so we're going to do them all together. We're going to start with what was released first, which was this Love Is Easy single. This is, I believe, the German version. It also came out in the UK. So this would have actually been the next thing those countries heard after Baby Blue. It came out before Apple of My Eye, which is very weird. And the album wouldn't come out until early 74. So it's actually quite a gap. B-side of that is My Heart Goes Out. This is the beginning of already being like some complex history. It's the first Joey A-side, so that's worth calling out. And it is a great song. It's very danceable. It almost feels like kind of proto-disco with some of the bass kind of quick double notes and everything there.
Never heard it on the radio, but we were really knocked out hearing it. But Love Is Easy and Joey growing all the time as a songwriter, and the drive of the guitar was just superb and just picked you right up off your feet. He was the rock guy within a rock unit, and Joey Molland really anchored the rock side of it, and which is saying something because the other guys had rock chops as well, but he was unbelievable. Love Is Easy is a great example of that. The bass was always superb, and it just recorded just really powerfully, and he was always original, but sometimes the riff or something would remind you of a Beatle thing that had been done, although it wasn't a lift, it wasn't a nicking it or anything, but this did remind me a little bit of It's All Too Much. George Harrison song, but it's its own song.
And the production's very nice on it as well. It's Chris Thomas again. A lot of echo and everything on it, but I think it ages pretty well. I think it's done tastefully. The solo is the one piece that's a little contentious. How I always used to say it was really distorted, but it's actually a pretty clean solo. They just they layered something on top of it, and that's what sounds weird to me, is how separated, right? There's like a clean guitar, and then I don't even know if it's a guitar, but some type of feedback doing the same scale on top of it. I don't know why it wouldn't just be.
I wasn't sure what that was. I was thinking it was a flute or something.
I prefer they played it live, I think, on the BBC album, and it's just sounds like a straight distorted guitar playing.
And it's a good example of the live power that came out of these guys and things like that. But yeah, powerful song to me that came out at a time when their peak had come, but to us it was still happening. It was a great song.
It's a great song, but I don't think the recording is great. The ending, I think it kind of falls short of being a single. The quality of the writing is there, and it's catchy and all of that, but then it doesn't really build. There's the ending kind of repeat thing I know they talk about. This is Badfinger. You could have a solo on it, you could have some backing vocals, kind of something to make it all come together at the end, and I don't think that happened.
Well, I think at the end I recall that the words weren't even finished. The recording, it seems to have been done very spontaneously. For what it is, I love it.
And then B-side, the Mike Gibbons song, My Heart Goes Out. I don't have much to say about this. I think probably could have used some of the other members of the band having more influence on what was going to be the next single after something as big as Baby Blue.
My Heart Goes Out is emotional to me. I feel it. It does stir me. The words, and almost English folk Welsh-like in the way that it's a melody to me, to my ears. A little point of interest is all that mandolin-like sounding guitar work or sound of strings is, according to Joey Molland, done with guitars. But Mike Gibbons was a songwriter and he wrote It Had to Be and other songs as well. But that's about all I would have to say. I mean, why it would be on the other side of the scene, which I didn't even know until you played it for me today, I'm not sure.
It's a strange single. I mean, it looks beautiful. The art and everything on this one is great, but it's kind of shocking as a fan. You realize that this was the single off that album. It had so many great songs on it. From there, we'll go into the US version of the singles, which we have two versions. We have the main single was I Miss You with the B-side Shine On, and this is the radio version, which has the stereo and mono versions of I Miss You. So we listened to both for completeness. So this was for us Americans. It would have come out after Apple of My Eye. I think knowing what album this was promoting, I don't know that it's representative of it in any way, and it almost to me feels like just the record company choosing the first two songs off the album without even going through it and thinking which ones were best candidates for being a hit. Would have never picked I Miss You. It probably would have been 5th or 6th on my list of most commercial songs on that album. Shine On, I think, is amazing, and the fact that that's a B-side is almost like proving it to me that no one listened to this. Similar story I always heard to when I'm 64, the Paul McCartney song. I think he wrote it when he was 16 and something when he was younger, right? And he re-recorded it.
Times were good and bad. Now you're gone. I'm always
I
yes.
just don't think it works as well. I don't
Yes.
think it was produced correctly. I find the orchestration on it pretty nauseating, the flutes and the organ. I think there's a beautiful song underneath there somewhere. Don't listen to more than a minute of it. Usually on the album I'll skip forward. But it's fun to play it.
Mystifying fact that this was the single. The flutes make it really cloyingly sweet. You know, he was a substantial songwriter, but this does sound a little too sweet. Nobody loved Pete Ham's music more than me, and even this, which sounds like an early Ivy's era type song that he may have written, was punched up to the degree that they could. I do like the harmony in it. I do like Pete Ham being double tracked. The way it was recorded was not a big, powerful song. I've always liked it. I like a lot of songs that Badfinger did, but it was a little anticlimactic as an album opener.
But it sounds like something off, 7 Park Avenue, like
Yes.
his demo disc, because
Yes.
there might not be any other member of Badfinger on this playing anything. It's just piano and orchestration.
That's a great point.
So-
I don't think there was.
Okay, and then Shine On though, amazing song. I probably would have picked this as the single. I think it could have been a hit. Amazing double guitar parts. Kind of has the clawhammer guitar fills and everything. The picking style there that Lennon used from a lot of
There's a lot
songs as
going
well.
on in the song, yeah.
Seeing them play it, I think briefly in that Japanese documentary, there's just so much power behind it, and it has a real band dynamic to it.
Great point about the Japanese documentary where they show Badfinger in their little studio, and I mean little, like a tiny little workspace almost. They are practicing, and Pete Ham is doing so many different soulful country-ish influence type leads to this. And one thing I was always struck by on the record, which is a great record and has great harmony and builds, but I was struck by how they cut all that out, all his country leads, which I wouldn't call noodling. They were really great in themselves, and came up with this massive kind of big Badfinger sound to the lead. So when fewer notes going up the octave, I just feel this was written to be a hit single. It wasn't, but it's a great song.
Yeah. I love the production. It's so warm and accessible, and it works perfect. It's a perfect hit song. Don't know how that wasn't the A-side all around the world.
This is the last song I know of that was written, I believe, to be a hit single. It has that written all over it. It's also the last song where the credit is given to Ham Evans, to Pete and Tom, although I think Tom added a line or two.
So let's rate them. Let's rate both versions of their Warner Brothers single out of 10 because it's kind of alternate realities here.
I love Love Is Easy. I personally would go 7.
Okay. I'm gonna go 3. I think it's a single. I don't think it works. I'm a big fan of Joey Mullen. I think it's a fun song on the album. Terrible idea for a single. And so out of 10 with Shine On the B side, you gotta keep that.
As a single with Shine On,
Yeah.
so Shine On's gonna lift it. I'll just say 7 again.
This is where it gets into how much does the A side versus B side thing matter.
Yeah.
If you flipped it, I probably would also give it a 6 or 7. But with I Miss You on the A side, I gotta go like 4.
It's a good point,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
I don't know how much that stuff matters at the time, but
it's just with Shine On, I felt a little guilty giving it lower than that.
yeah,
But that's a real good point, because I Miss You is not gonna lift it up to a higher rating.
that's fair. I think I would have picked Shine On as a single. I would have picked Mad at Spam as a single. Lonely You off the album. I mean, there's so
Another
many
one
great
rated to be
songs.
I thought to be a
And
single.
not that I'm saying every Pete Ham song should be a single, but those are just easy singles. It seems like off the album.
That's a great point. Lonely You was a big ballad, and again, not a day after day, but he was going for something like that.
And much more representative of just, I think, the feel of that album. So,
Yes.
all right, so that's the first self-titled, untitled Badfinger album. Those are the singles that came out around the world.